My name is Melvin. I am 59 years old, and I built this house with my own 2 hands 30 years ago. My son just screamed at me. Don't argue with my wife in her house. Her house. Those words cut deep. This is my home. Every nail, every board holds a memory. What happened next changed everything. If you have ever felt invisible in your own home, drop a comment. Hit that like and subscribe button, because this story has a twist you will never see coming. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand what this house means to me. Before you can understand why those words from my son nearly broke me in two. I was born and raised right here in Columbus, Ohio. My father was a carpenter, one of the best in the county. He had hands like sandpaper and a heart like oak. Solid. Dependable. He taught me everything I know about building things. When I was just 7 years old, he put a hammer in my hand and showed me how to drive a nail straight. By the time I was 12, I could frame a wall by myself, and by 18 I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I became a contractor. Started small, doing repairs and renovations for folks in the neighborhood. Word spread about the quality of my work. I never cut corners. I never used cheap materials. Every job I did, I treated like I was building it for my own family. That philosophy served me well. Within 10 years, I had my own crew and a reputation that stretched across the suburbs of Columbus. My father used to say, "A man builds his life with his own 2 hands." I believed that with every fiber of my being. I never asked anyone for a handout. Never expected anything I did not earn. That is just how I was raised. Then I met Margaret. It was 1990, and I was working on a renovation project for a small church on the east side of town. The congregation had hired me to expand their fellowship hall. It was honest work, and I was proud to be part of it. One afternoon, I walked into the temporary kitchen they had set up for the volunteers, and there she was, Margaret. She was 24 years old, with warm brown eyes and a smile that could light up a room. She was ladling soup into bowls for the construction crew, and when she looked up at me, I swear time stopped. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital, but she volunteered at the church every chance she got. That was Margaret, always giving, always caring for others before herself. I must have looked like a fool standing there in my dusty work clothes, sawdust in my hair, just staring at her. But she did not seem to mind. She handed me a bowl of soup and said, "You look like you could use a warm meal." I fell in love with her right then and there. We started talking during my lunch breaks. Then those talks turned into coffee after work. Then dinner dates. Then long walks through the park where we would talk about everything and nothing at all. Margaret did not care that I was a contractor. She did not care that my hands were rough and calloused. She told me once that she loved my hands because they were honest hands. Hands that built things. Hands that created instead of destroyed. We got married in 1991 in that same little church I had helped renovate. It was a small ceremony, maybe 40 people. But it was perfect. Margaret wore a simple white dress she had found at a thrift store, and I wore my father's old suit. We did not have much money, but we had each other, and that was enough. After the wedding, we rented a tiny apartment on the outskirts of town. It was cramped and the heating was unreliable, but we made it work. We saved every penny we could. Margaret picked up extra shifts at the hospital. I took on every job that came my way, no matter how small. We had a dream, you see. We wanted to build our own home. Not buy one. Build one. With our own hands. Well, mostly my hands, but Margaret was determined to help however she could. In 1994, after 3 years of saving, We finally had enough for a down payment on a plot of land. 2 acres on the edge of town, surrounded by old oak trees and rolling hills. It was perfect. I will never forget the day we signed the papers. Margaret and I stood on that empty lot, holding hands, and I promised her I would build her the most beautiful home she had ever seen. And I kept that promise. I designed the house myself. A 2-story colonial with white siding and black shutters. 4 bedrooms because Margaret wanted space for children and guests. A big kitchen with plenty of counter space for all the cooking she loved to do. A living room with a stone fireplace that I would build by hand, 1 rock at a time. I worked on that house every spare moment I had. Mornings before my regular jobs. Evenings after the sun went down. Weekends from dawn to dusk. Margaret would bring me lunch and sit with me in the sawdust, talking about our future, about the family we would raise within those walls. It took 18 months to complete. 18 months of blood, sweat, and more than a few tears. But when it was done, I stood back and looked at what I had created, and I felt a pride I had never known before. Every beam was straight. Every joint was tight. Every nail was driven true. That house was not just a building. It was a testament to everything I believed in. Hard work, dedication, love. We moved in on a crisp October morning in 1995. Margaret cried when she walked through the front door. She ran her hands over the walls, touched the fireplace mantel I had carved, looked out the windows at the land we now called home. "This is perfect," she whispered. Absolutely perfect. The house was worth over $200,000 in labor and materials alone. But its true value could not be measured in money. It was priceless because of what it represented. Our life together. Our future. Brandon was born in 1992 before the house was finished. He was our only child, and we poured everything we had into raising him. Margaret was the gentle one, always patient, always understanding. I was stricter, I admit. I wanted Brandon to learn the same values my father had taught me. The value of hard work, the importance of earning what you have. I taught Brandon how to use tools from a young age. How to measure twice and cut once. How to sand wood until it was smooth as glass. But Brandon was never interested in working with his hands. He preferred computers and video games. Technology was his passion. Margaret would always defend him when I pushed too hard. "Let him find his own path," she would say. "He is different from you, and that is okay." I tried to accept it. I really did. Brandon was a good kid, even if he did not share my interests. He did well in school. He stayed out of trouble. And when he left for college to study information technology, I was proud of him, even though part of me wished he had chosen a different direction. He graduated in 2014 and got a job in the city. He did not come home much after that. A few times a year, maybe. Holidays and birthdays. Margaret missed him terribly, but she never complained. She understood that children grow up and build their own lives. I thought we had done a good job raising him. I thought we had instilled good values in him. But looking back now, I wonder if I missed something. Some sign of what was to come. Maybe I was too busy building things to see what was happening right in front of me. In 2021, my world fell apart. Margaret had been feeling tired for months. She blamed it on working too hard on getting older. But I knew something was wrong. Margaret never complained, never slowed down. The fact that she was struggling to get through the day told me this was serious. I finally convinced her to see a doctor. They ran tests, lots of tests. And then they delivered the news that would change everything. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctor said the words, but I could not process them. Margaret sat there holding my hand, calm as ever, while I felt like the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. 6 months, they told us. Maybe 8 if she responded well to treatment. We did everything we could. Chemotherapy, radiation, experimental treatments. Nothing worked. The cancer spread faster than anyone expected. I spent those last 8 months by her side every moment I could. I held her hand while she slept. I read to her when she was too weak to hold a book. I told her stories about the day we met, the day we got married, the day we moved into our home. She passed away on a cold February morning in our bedroom in the house I had built for her. Her last words to me were, "Take care of Brandon. He needs you more than he shows." I promised her I would. The funeral was small, just like our wedding had been. Brandon flew in from the city. He looked tired, distracted. He cried at the service, but there was something distant in his eyes, like he was already thinking about getting back to his own life. After everyone left, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the fireplace I had built stone by stone. The house felt empty without Margaret. Her presence had filled every corner, every room. Now there was just silence. For 2 years, I lived alone in that house. I kept working, kept staying busy because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling the pain. My friend Earl would come by sometimes to check on me. He was a good man, 61 years old, a retired electrician who understood loss. His wife had passed a few years before Margaret. "You need to get out more," Earl would tell me. "This house is going to swallow you whole if you are not careful." But I could not leave. This was my home. Margaret was everywhere here. In the curtains she had chosen. In the garden she had planted. In the marks on the door frame where we had measured Brandon's height as he grew. Brandon called occasionally. Short conversations mostly about nothing important. He was busy with work. Busy with his life. I understood. At least I tried to. Then in 2022, Brandon called with news. He had met someone. Her name was Stacy. He had found her on one of those dating applications young people use these days. She was 28 years old, worked in real estate, and according to Brandon, she was perfect. He brought her to meet me 3 months after they started dating. I remember that day clearly. They pulled up in a fancy car, the kind that costs more than most people make in a year. Stacy stepped out like she was walking onto a runway. Designer clothes, perfect hair, expensive jewelry. She looked around the property with an expression I could not quite read. Not impressed exactly. More like calculating. "Hello, mister," she started, then looked at Brandon. "Just call him Dad," Brandon said. Stacy smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Hello, Dad. What a lovely property you have here. How much land is this?" 2 acres. "About that," I said. And the house, she continued, looking up at the structure I had built with my own hands. "How many? Square feet 3,000. I do not know the exact number," I admitted. "I built it myself 30 years ago. Never really thought about square footage." "You built it yourself?" Her eyebrows rose. "That is impressive. It must be worth quite a lot now." Something about the way she said it made me uncomfortable. But Brandon was beaming, clearly proud to show off his new girlfriend, so I pushed my concerns aside. They got engaged after just 6 months of dating. The wedding was extravagant, far beyond what I thought was reasonable. But Brandon insisted Stacy deserved a fairy tale wedding, and since I had offered to help with expenses, I ended up paying for most of it. Margaret would have handled this differently, I thought, as I wrote check after check. She would have found a way to be supportive, while also teaching them fiscal responsibility. But Margaret was gone, and I was doing my best to honor my promise to take care of Brandon. After the wedding, Brandon and Stacy rented a luxury apartment in the city. High-rise building, doorman, the works. I visited once and was shocked by the opulence. "This must cost a fortune," I said. Brandon shrugged. "Stacy wants to live somewhere nice. She deserves it. I noticed he said she deserves it, not we deserve it. Over the following months, I started hearing about their financial troubles. Brandon would mention credit card bills in passing. Stacy lost her job when the real estate market took a downturn. She spent her days shopping and lunching with friends, while Brandon worked longer and longer hours to keep up with their lifestyle. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Dad Brandon said, his voice strained. "We are in trouble. The landlord is raising our rent and we cannot afford it anymore." Stacy and I were wondering, could we stay with you for a while, just until we get back on our feet? My heart ached for my son. Despite everything, he was still my boy. Still the child Margaret and I had raised. And I had made her a promise. "Of course," I said. "Come home." They arrived in March of this year, with a moving truck full of expensive furniture and designer clothes. Stacy walked through the front door and looked around with that same calculating expression she had worn on her first visit. I had prepared the downstairs guest room for them, converting part of the living room into a private space. I wanted them to be comfortable. I wanted to help. Those first few days, everything seemed fine. Stacy was polite, calling me Dad, and thanking me for letting them stay. Brandon seemed relieved to be away from the financial pressure of the city. But then things started to change. It began with small things, little comments, subtle suggestions. "This house is so dark," Stacy said one morning. "We should change these curtains. Something brighter, more modern." "Margaret picked those curtains," I replied. Stacy waved her hand dismissively. "I know, but they are so outdated. We need to freshen up the place." I let it go. It was just curtains after all. But then she moved the photographs. Margaret's pictures, the ones I had displayed throughout the house. Our wedding photo. Brandon as a baby. Family vacations. Stacy gathered them all and put them in a closet. "Old photos make the house look depressing," she explained when I asked. "We need a more contemporary aesthetic." I retrieved the photos and put them back. Stacy said nothing, but I saw the look she gave Brandon. That night I heard them arguing in hushed tones. The next day, Stacy announced she would be taking over the cooking. "You are too old to be standing over a hot stove every day," she said. "Let me handle the meals." I thought it was a kind gesture. But Stacy did not cook. Not once. Instead, she ordered takeout every night, charging it to my credit card. Thai food, Italian, sushi. The bills started adding up quickly. When I checked my statement at the end of the first month, I was stunned. Over $2,000 in food delivery alone. "Stacy," I said carefully, "I appreciate you handling the meals, but this is getting expensive. Maybe we could cook at home a few nights a week." She looked at me like I had suggested we eat garbage. Cooking is so time-consuming, and besides the kitchen is so outdated, I could not possibly work in there. I glanced at Brandon, expecting him to say something. He just stared at his phone. Things escalated from there. Stacy started inviting her friends over for what she called social gatherings. Really, they were parties. Loud music, expensive wine, strangers wandering through my home. During these events, I was expected to stay in my room. It is awkward having an old man around when we are trying to entertain, Stacy explained. "I am sure you understand." I did not understand. This was my house. My home. But I kept quiet, trying to keep the peace for Brandon's sake. One evening I came downstairs to get a glass of water and overheard Stacy on the phone. She was in the kitchen speaking in a hushed but animated voice. "This house is worth at least $400,000. Now," she said, "once the old man is out of the picture, Brandon will inherit everything. I just need to be patient." I froze in the hallway, my heart pounding. "He is so annoying," Stacy continued. "Always talking about his dead wife and how he built this house. Who cares? As soon as we get him into a nursing home or something, this place will be ours." I backed away silently, my hands shaking. I could not believe what I had just heard. This woman, this person my son had married was planning to take everything from me. My home, my legacy, everything I had built. I wanted to confront her right then and there. I wanted to wake Brandon and tell him what I had heard. But something stopped me. Fear, maybe. Or the knowledge that Brandon might not believe me. He was so deep under Stacy's spell, I was not sure he could see the truth, even if I showed it to him. That night, I lay awake until dawn, Margaret's words echoing in my mind. Take care of Brandon. He needs you more than he shows. But how could I take care of him when his own wife was plotting against me? The financial demands increased. Stacy decided the kitchen needed to be renovated. She presented me with estimates totaling over $50,000. Brandon brought it up over dinner, clearly uncomfortable. Dad, Stacy thinks we should update the kitchen. It would increase the home's value. This kitchen was designed by your mother, I said firmly. I will not change it. Stacy's face hardened. She did not say anything, but from that moment on, she barely acknowledged my existence. No more fake smiles. No more calling me Dad. I had become an obstacle to be removed. Brandon was caught in the middle, but he made his choice clear. He stopped eating meals with me, stopped talking to me unless absolutely necessary. When Stacy complained about something I did, Brandon would take her side without question. My friend Earl came by one afternoon and immediately sensed something was wrong. You look terrible, he said. What is going on? I told him everything. The comments, the parties, the overheard phone call. The way Stacy was slowly taking over my home while turning my son against me. Earl shook his head. Melvin, you need to stand up for yourself. This is your house. You built it with your own hands. You cannot let these people push you around. I know, I said. But Brandon is my son. I promised Margaret I would take care of him. Earl put his hand on my shoulder. Taking care of someone does not mean letting them walk all over you. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is show them there are consequences for their actions. He was right. I knew he was right. But I did not know how to fix things without losing my son forever. Then came the morning that changed everything. It was a Saturday. I woke up early, as I always do, and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. I pulled out Margaret's cast-iron skillet, the one she had used for 30 years, and started cracking eggs. Stacy appeared in the doorway. Her arms crossed, her expression hostile. I told you I do not want those old pans in my kitchen, she said. They are disgusting. I set down the egg I was holding and turned to face her. This is not your kitchen, I said calmly. This is my house. Stacy's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. I live here now. This is my home, too. You live here as a guest, I replied. I built this house with my own hands. Every wall, every floor, every cabinet. This is my home, and I will use whatever cookware I choose. Stacy's face flushed red. Brandon, she screamed. Brandon, get down here. I heard footsteps pounding down the stairs, and then Brandon burst into the kitchen, his hair disheveled, his eyes wild. What is going on? He demanded. Stacy immediately started crying. Your father is being impossible. He disrespected me. He said, this is not my home. Brandon did not ask for my side of the story. He did not ask what had happened. He just turned to me. His face twisted with anger, and said the words I will never forget. Dad, don't you dare argue with my wife in her house. I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. Her house. This is my house. I built every inch of it. Brandon stepped closer, his finger jabbing toward my chest. Mom is gone. Things change. Stacy is my wife now, and if she says something, you need to respect it. The words hit me like a physical blow. Behind Brandon, I could see Stacy watching with a small smile on her face. She had won. She had turned my own son against me. If you cannot accept, Stacy. Brandon continued, his voice cold. Maybe you should be the one to leave. I looked at my son, this stranger, standing in my kitchen, and I realized something. The Brandon I had raised the boy Margaret and I had loved and nurtured was gone. In his place was someone I did not recognize, someone who would side with a manipulative woman over his own father, someone who would tell me to leave my own home. I did not argue. I did not plead. I simply turned and walked out of the kitchen, grabbed my keys, and left the house. I drove to the hardware store in a daze. My mind was racing, but my hands were steady. I knew what I had to do. I bought new locks, heavy-duty deadbolts for every exterior door, a new security system with cameras and alerts. I paid in cash and loaded everything into my truck. Then I called Earl. I need your help, I said. Can you meet me at my place in an hour? Earl did not ask questions. He just said, I will be there. When I got back to the house, Brandon and Stacy had left. Shopping, probably. Using my credit card to buy things they did not need. It did not matter. They would not be coming back. Earl arrived, and together we changed every lock on the house. Front door, back door, garage entrance, side door to the basement. Every single one. Earl did not say much while we worked, but I could feel his support. While he installed the security system, I went through the house collecting Brandon and Stacy's belongings, clothes, electronics, personal items. I packed everything into cardboard boxes, careful not to damage anything. I was not trying to hurt them. I was simply reclaiming what was mine. I carried the boxes outside and stacked them neatly on the front porch. Then I went back inside, locked the door, and waited. They returned around 4 in the afternoon. I watched through the window as Stacy tried her key in the lock and found it did not work. Her confusion quickly turned to fury. She pounded on the door. Brandon. Something is wrong with the lock. Brandon tried his key. Same result. He started banging on the door, shouting. Dad. Dad, open the door. I did not move. Stacy pulled out her phone and called me. I let it ring. She called again. And again. I did not answer. Finally, Brandon called. I picked up. Dad, what is going on? He demanded. We are locked out. I know, I said. What do you mean, you know, open the door? No. There was a long pause. Dad, this is not funny. Let us in. This is my house, I said. My name is on the deed. You are no longer welcome here. Your things are on the porch. Take them and leave. You cannot do this, Stacy screamed in the background. This is illegal. It is perfectly legal, I replied. This is my property. I have every right to decide who lives here. Brandon's voice cracked. Dad, please. Where are we supposed to go? That is not my problem, I said. You made your choice this morning when you told me to leave my own home. Now you can live with the consequences. I hung up. For the next hour, I listened to them pound on the doors, shout through the windows, and threaten to call the police. Eventually, they did call. 2 officers arrived, listened to both sides of the story, and confirmed what I already knew. Sir, one of them said to Brandon, if your father owns this property and you are not on the lease, he has the right to ask you to leave. This is a civil matter. Stacy tried arguing, tried crying, tried everything she could think of. But the law was clear. This was my house, and I had every right to change the locks. Brandon stood in the driveway, his face pale, his eyes hollow. He looked like a man who had just woken up from a long sleep to find his life in ruins. Part of me wanted to go out there and hug him, to tell him it would be okay. But I could not. Not yet. He needed to understand what he had done. He needed to face the consequences of his choices. I watched them load their boxes into their car and drive away. And as their taillights disappeared down the road, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Strength. Exactly 1 hour after they left, the doorbell rang. I checked the security camera and was surprised to see Stacy standing alone on the porch. No Brandon. Just Stacy, and her entire demeanor had changed. Gone was the arrogant, entitled woman who had been terrorizing me for months. In her place was someone who looked scared, desperate. I opened the door but did not invite her in. "Dad." She started, her voice trembling. "Please, I am so sorry about everything. Can we just talk?" I leaned against the door frame. "What do you want, Stacy?" She wiped her eyes. "I need Brandon's laptop. It has important work files on it. He will lose his job if he does not have it. Please just give us that one thing." I studied her face, looking for the lie. There was something else going on here. Stacy did not care about Brandon's work files. She never had. So why was she so desperate to get that laptop? "Wait here," I said. I went back inside and found the laptop still sitting on the desk in the guest room. I had not packed it with the other things. Opening it, I saw that it was still logged in. I should have just taken it out to her. That was what a decent person would do. But something made me pause. Call it intuition. Call it suspicion, built up over months of being deceived. The email application was open, and right there at the top of the inbox was a message that made my blood run cold. It was from someone named Marcus. The subject line read, "When are you leaving him?" I clicked on it. The email was explicit. Marcus was Stacy's lover. They had been together for over a year, since before she even married Brandon. The plan laid out in detail across dozens of emails was simple. Stacy would marry Brandon, convince him to pressure me for the house, and then, once they had it, she would divorce Brandon and take half of everything. Marcus was a real estate agent. He knew exactly how much my property was worth and had been advising Stacy every step of the way. I scrolled through more emails, my stomach churning. They talked about me like I was an obstacle to be removed. They mocked Brandon, calling him gullible and weak. They discussed how to accelerate their plan, how to get me out of the picture faster. I took out my phone and photographed every email, every message, every piece of evidence. Then I picked up the laptop and walked back to the front door. Stacy was still standing there, her fake tears now dry, her impatience showing through her mask. "Did you find it?" she asked eagerly. "I did," I said, holding up the laptop. I also found the emails, Stacy. The ones from Marcus. Her face went white. "I know about your plan," I continued. "I know about the affair. I know everything." Stacy's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. For the first time since I had met her, she was speechless. That is nothing," she finally stammered. "Just a friend." "Do not lie to me," I said. "I have screenshots. I have proof. And I am going to show Brandon exactly what kind of person he married. Please." Stacy grabbed my arm, all pretense of dignity gone. "Please do not tell him. I will leave. I will disappear. Just do not tell Brandon. It will destroy him. He deserves to know the truth." As if summoned by her worst fears, Brandon's car pulled into the driveway. He had been waiting down the street, probably expecting Stacy to sweet-talk me into letting them back in. He got out and walked up the path, looking between us with confusion. "What is going on?" he asked. "Stacy, are you okay?" Stacy tried to pull him away. "Nothing. Let us just go." But Brandon had seen her face. He knew something was wrong. "Dad," he said, "what happened?" I held out my phone. "You need to see something, son." Brandon took the phone and started scrolling through the screenshots. I watched his face change as he read. Confusion. Disbelief. Horror. Rage. "Is this real?" he whispered, looking at Stacy. "You and Marcus." Stacy did not deny it. Instead, she went on the attack. "You were never enough for me," she shouted. "You could not even stand up to your own father. I deserve better than this." Brandon stared at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. Maybe he was. "Get out," he said quietly. "Brandon, I can explain." "Get out." Stacy flinched. Then her mask slipped completely, and I saw the real woman underneath. Cold. Calculating. Cruel. "Fine," she spat. "Keep your pathetic little family. I never wanted any of you anyway." She turned and walked to her car, without looking back. The engine roared to life, and she was gone, leaving nothing but tire marks on my driveway. Brandon did not move. He just stood there, staring at the empty space where his wife had been. "I did not know," he said finally. "Dad, I swear I did not know." "I know, son. I should have listened to you. I should have seen it. I was so blind." I stepped forward and put my hand on his shoulder. The same gesture my father used to make when I was young and hurting. "Come inside," I said. "We have a lot to talk about." That night, Brandon and I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Margaret used to serve Sunday dinners. I made eggs and toast, simple comfort food, and we ate in silence for a while. Finally, Brandon spoke. "I treated you terribly," he said. "I told you to leave your own house. The house you built." "What kind of son does that?" "A son who was being manipulated," I replied. "Stacy knew exactly how to control you. She isolated you from me, made you dependent on her approval. That is not your fault, but I let her. I chose her over you. Yes, you did. And that hurt. I will not pretend it did not." Brandon put down his fork. "How can you even look at me right now?" I thought about his question. Really thought about it. Because the truth was, part of me was still angry. Still wounded by the things he had said, the way he had treated me. But then I remembered Margaret. Her gentle smile. Her unwavering faith in the goodness of people. "Because I love you," I said. "Because you are my son. And because I believe the person you were this morning is not the person you really are." Brandon broke down. Years of bottled emotions came flooding out. He told me about the pressure of trying to keep Stacy happy, the debt they had accumulated, the constant feeling of never being good enough. I listened without judgment. Margaret would have been proud of me for that. By the time the sun came up, we had talked more than we had in years. Real conversation, honest conversation. It was a start. Over the following weeks, Brandon stayed with me. But this time, it was different. He was not a guest expecting to be served. He was a son trying to make amends. He started helping around the house, small things at first, taking out the garbage, mowing the lawn, then bigger projects. We fixed the fence together, repainted the garage. He even helped me sand and refinish the deck that I had built when he was just a baby. "You're getting pretty good at this," I told him one afternoon. Brandon smiled. I had a good teacher. I just was not paying attention. Meanwhile, Brandon filed for divorce. Stacy did not contest it. She had already moved on to her next target, probably some other poor fool who would fall for her games. Brandon did not care. He was just relieved to be free of her. He sold the fancy furniture they had accumulated, paid off the credit card debt, and started fresh. It was not easy. There were setbacks and moments of doubt, but he was trying, and that was what mattered. Earl came by regularly, pleased to see the change in our household. "I told you things would work out," he said. "You just needed to stand your ground." He was right. Standing up for myself was the hardest thing I had ever done. But it was also the most necessary. 6 months after that terrible Saturday, Brandon moved out. But this time, it was on good terms. He had saved enough for a small apartment near his new job, a better position with a company that valued him. The day he left, I gave him a gift. A wooden toolbox that had belonged to my father, passed down to me, and now passed down to him. "Grandpa's tools," Brandon said, running his hand over the worn wood. "Your great-grandfather started that collection," I said. "Passed them to your grandfather, who passed them to me. Now they are yours." "Dad, I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything. Just take care of them. And remember where you came from." Brandon hugged me, then a real hug, the kind we had not shared in years. "I will visit every Sunday," he promised, and I meant it. "I believe you," I said, and I did. A year has passed since that morning when my son told me not to argue with his wife in her house. A year since I changed the locks and reclaimed my home. A year since everything fell apart, and then slowly, painfully began to come back together. Brandon kept his promise. Every Sunday, his car pulls into the driveway, and we spend the afternoon together. Sometimes we work on projects around the house. Sometimes we just sit on the porch and talk. He has grown so much in these past 12 months. The boy who used to avoid hard work now volunteers to help Earl with his renovation projects. The son who took his wife's side without question now asks for my advice before making big decisions. He is not perfect, neither am I. But we are trying, and that is enough. I think about Margaret often, about her final words. Take care of Brandon. He needs you more than he shows. She was right, as she always was. Brandon needed me, but not in the way I originally thought. He did not need me to give him money or a place to stay. He needed me to show him what strength looks like, what boundaries look like, what unconditional love really means. I forgave Brandon a long time ago, not because what he did was okay, but because holding on to anger would only poison me. Margaret taught me that. She never held grudges, never let bitterness take root in her heart. As for Stacy, I hear she is on to her 3rd marriage now. Some wealthy businessman who will learn the hard way what kind of person she really is. I do not wish her ill. I do not wish her anything at all. She is simply not worth the energy. I sit on my porch these days, watching the sunset over the land. Margaret and I fell in love with all those years ago. The house still stands strong, every beam and board exactly where I placed them. It will outlast me, this home I built with my own 2 hands. And someday, it will belong to Brandon. Not because he demanded it or manipulated me for it, but because he finally earned it. Because he became the man his mother always believed he could be. The greatest victory I won was not keeping my house. It was saving my son. Showing him that love sometimes means saying no. That respect is earned, not demanded. That the strongest walls are not made of wood and stone, but of principles and values. I built this house with my own 2 hands 30 years ago. I never thought I would have to fight to keep it. But looking back, the hardest part was not changing the locks. It was finding the courage to stand up and say, "This is who I am. This is what I built. And no one, not even my own son, can take that away from me." Maybe that is the real lesson. Sometimes protecting what you love means letting others fall so they can learn to stand on their own. And sometimes when you least expect it, they find their way back home. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against your own family? Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own home? Drop a comment below and share your story. Your experience might help someone else going through something similar. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It helps more than you know. And if you have not already, please subscribe to this channel and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. We all need reminders sometimes that standing up for ourselves is not just okay. It is necessary. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for being part of this community. May you always have the courage to protect what you have built and the wisdom to know when to let go. Take care of yourselves. And remember, your home is not just the place where you live. It is the place where you belong. Until next time.